Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Pajama Sam 2. Thunder and lightning aren't so frightening for the Nintendo Switch. Despite the 2 in the name, it's not really required that you play the first Pajama Sam game in order to understand what's going on, as with the exception of one character, you really don't need to know who anyone else is. It's in an entirely different setting with a story that's entirely standalone. So this is more or less the same engine as Pajama Sam 1, but in a different setting, so I don't really need to explain the mechanics of how the game works. But there are two really interesting changes that makes this a much better experience. First of all, Sam now finds puzzle pieces instead of socks, and these puzzle pieces are, by the nature of them being puzzle pieces, are much smaller, so this promotes even more environmental awareness. And whereas the socks they didn't really do much if you collected all of them, this actually presents a puzzle that's completed. In the original version you could print it, but now that you're on the Switch you can just use the capture button. So I guess that's a nice alternative, because from what I heard you can actually take your captures on the Switch and put them on social media, so that might even be better than the printer. What do you know? The humongous entertainment games on Switch actually had improvements! As, just like the previous games, this one is more or less exactly the same as the PC version. Another cool change from Pajama Sam 1 is that you have this machine, which actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense out of context, but you'll find it when you scroll to the bottom of the screen where Sam usually keeps his items. And this allows you to play an optional minigame, as well as set up how you want the branching pathways to go. The game presents you with 6 different combinations of where the various weather parts that Sam needs to find are located. And so if you've already played the game and you want to know, like, I wonder what would happen if the game took an alternate route, then you can totally do that. You have the option of selecting routes that you could like, or you could just say, this is the one I want, or even just let the computer choose. Or I should say let the Switch choose in this case, as the game didn't bother upgrading itself to account for the new system. So every time you play it, there are 2 different locations that each weather part can be in. So you can do the math to have that many different combinations. Admittedly, the game only presents 6, but I'm sure there are actually more than that. The game just ran out of room in its original release. Overall, I think Pajama Sam 2 is a much better game than its predecessor, mainly because its setting is even more imaginative. Now, I don't know if this was in the original game or not, but one thing that's really cool about Pajama Sam 2 is that you can actually talk to the characters multiple times to get more dialogue, which is a step up from a lot of Zelda games, honestly, where the characters will continue having different things to say. And sometimes you can really mess with the characters. The phone alone in the lobby makes up for most of the jokes, as if you dial the right numbers, you can tune into the weather suggestions department, which has the infamous what happens if you have room temperature snow. I'll let you experience that for yourself, because that joke's still hilarious to this day, as well as the complaints department, where the person on the phone just continues complaining. And overall, worldwide weather is a great setting that shows how a child would imagine how the various weather effects are put together, as though it's in an industrial factory. And adults might get a kick out of some of the jokes about the economy and overworked employees, and how the game is kind of a satire of how a business runs. It's still a very easy game. This is a game for children, and so it's not really going to be entirely challenging. But it's much more enjoyable than Pajama Sam 1. Whereas that game and other humongous entertainment games felt like they were very much children's games, Pajama Sam 2 definitely offers a lot of dialogue that may appeal to the older audience. So I could see this possibly being a game that people in the double digits would like, mainly because a lot of the jokes play on the fact that Sam is innocent, and that makes it funny for kids. But then adults can get a chuckle out of how the game is trying to kidify a lot of more adult themes like economics and working conditions. I also really like the general level design a lot more than Pajama Sam 1. Everything is in a very circular figure eight type of style, so it's fun to experiment with different pathways that you can use to explore the environment. And there's usually something going on to try to industrialize the weather, which of course you all know doesn't actually happen. But this is Sam's imagination, so it's fun to see how there's a rainmaker machine and a snowflake inspector and all of this really cool stuff to overcomplicate something so simple. So with that, I highly recommend giving this a try. You might like it as an adult, but know that it is probably not for your age demographic and much more suited to a younger audience, as this is an edutainment game, so they will probably learn a lot. I did. I learned what confiscation meant from the first Pajama Sam. And I imagine the younger crowd of nowadays will probably learn even more vocabulary and weather facts. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you think and if there's anything I need to make clearer. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and wouldn't it be cool if there were actually machines in heaven that are creating all of the weather effects in this world? Bye!